Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a day which we shall live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by air and naval forces of the Empire of Japan. This quote, spoken by President Franklin Delano Roosevelt on December 8th, 1941, was given to the United States Constitution as well as the nation, addressing them of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor the day before. See, I would like to go over and discuss the ongoing importance of the speech as a whole. First, I'd like to start off by bringing light to the circumstances that were happening in the world at this time that led to the speech, and second, I would like to go over and bring light to the impacts that the speech has had, long and short term, on the world. So to start, let's go over the circumstances. See, tension was rising in Europe. Invasions were taking place. The Second World War was rising up. 2 years prior to the attack on Pearl Harbor, September 1st, 1939, German forces invaded Poland. This then forced and almost provoked, in a way, Britain and France to declare war against Germany. On the other hand, over in the Pacific, the United States and Japan were trying to mend problems and faults that were caused in their relationship. The states were trying to stop this Japanese war that was going on in China. After that, Japanese extended a number of proposals to the United States, which our nation turned down. And Japanese weren't happy about that. They wanted to take over European colonies in Asia to create a defense in the Pacific. So, to keep us neutral, we tried to stay out of the way. So the United States neutralized our U.S. naval fleet in the Pacific, which was a bad move. Because on December 7th, 1941, when we were unaware, the Japanese surprise attacked Pearl Harbor, Oahu, Hawaii. And that was one of the most tragically fatal days in U.S. history. See, the speech was necessary because it was one of the most tragically fatal days in U.S. history. For 90 minutes, an hour and a half, the Japanese destroyed nearly 200 aircrafts on Oahu's airfield. They sunk or damaged 8 battleships, 3 cruisers, 3 destroyers, a mine-laying ship, and several other ships. This attack, in an hour and a half, left over 2,000 servicemen of the United States military dead, and over 1,178 of them were wounded. It was absolutely a terrible day in U.S. history. See, we have just discussed first the circumstances that led to this speech and the uprising of World War II that was taking place. Now I'd like to go on to the impact of the initial speech, long and short term, on the world. See, those who are listening or watching Franklin's speech were impacted and encouraged. The citizens of America were brought from mourning their loss to being encouraged by Roosevelt's empowering words. The nation was moved from a time of peace to a time of war, not negatively, but positively. And also the declaration of war in his speech immensely stimulated the economy. In his speech, he speaks into the hearts of his people. Words of triumph and encouragement, such as, no matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory. He promises them absolute victory. Roosevelt says, we will win. After his quotes like this, Americans responded with patriotic fervor. They could not control themselves. Even people who were unsupportive of the war efforts, such as Charles Lindbergh, who was a leader in the Anti-War America First Committee, was now in support of the war efforts. It was huge. He was so empowering. See, the hearts and determination to win were not the only things that were stimulated after this speech. See, the economy of the U.S. was stimulated. The many New Deal agencies that were created to provide jobs during the Great Depression were now deemed as incompetent because of all the jobs that were being produced due to the war mobilization efforts. The wartime mobilization offered more jobs and there were people to fill them. This fully recovered the economy, pulling them out of the Great Depression. That was huge. But the impacts did not end there. See, the victory of World War II resulted in a vision in which a strong world organization would create collective worldwide security, which would then be deemed known as the United Nations today. Allied powers back then agreed during the war to establish a new global organization. to help manage international affairs. See, on January 1st, 1942, 26 countries signed the Declaration of the United Nations, which set forth the war aims of the Allied powers. In 1973, German states were admitted. 1977, Vietnam was admitted to the United Nations. In 1991, the two Koreas were admitted, which was huge. And see, today, in the early 21st century, the United Nations is comprised of nearly 190 member states. And that's huge. That's today. And this was a vision that was started during the time of that war, and the impact has lasted until today and is still continuing to grow. See, today we have invested first the circumstances that led to this speech, the war, the invasions, and secondly, we've followed that up with the impacts that this speech has had on the world. Now, I believe that you should all take time to read this speech, or listen to it, or whatever you guys have time to do, because not only it helps us to remember and reflect on a tragic day in U.S. history and the impacts it has had, but it also gives us an example of what a true leader looks like. A man leading by example, modeling the way for his nation. He had every opportunity to buckle, to break down when the nation was struck with tragedy, but what he did, he gave the truth of the tragedy. But he also reassured his nation that we will win this war and that we will redeem ourselves. Roosevelt led out of strength, and his nation followed in strength to victory of the war. Thank you.